Hello and welcome to the Can It Take a K26 Vortex special. Many people have requested that I do an episode on Vortex blasters, and my previous answer has always been that they use torsion springs, so of course they can't take a K26. But it has come to my attention that I actually have two of the Vortex blasters that I think actually use compression springs. It also has come to my attention that technically K26 could be used as a torsion spring if bent the right way. So I'm going to do the two blasters that I believe have compression springs to see if they can take a K26, and then I'm going to try to do K26 into a torsion spring blaster and see if there's any way that I can use a bit of K26 to create a torsion spring, and if so, then I will do the rest of them in future episodes. If not, I'm just going to conclude that they can't and move on. So let's take a look at our first contestant. The first Vortex blaster that I'm going to cover is the Ricochet. The Ricochet was originally released in 2014 as part of the Zombie Strike line. The Vortex line goes back to at least 2011, but I'm going with this one because it is by far the simplest. It was also the first Vortex blaster that was muzzle loaded, and I don't know exactly how it functions, but from the look, I think it actually uses a compression spring rather than a torsion spring. I could be wrong about this, but I'm going to open it up and find out. Okay, well, I was, in fact, correct. This does not use a torsion spring. This uses a compression spring, and a really tough one. Wow. That is shockingly strong for its size. Obviously, K26 is too big. But it also means that hypothetically, if we could find something of a similar size, well, reaching into my bin of springs, I found something that fits around the original spring and around this plunger rod kind of looking thing. I don't know if it'll be able to get compression, or if it'll be able to catch, or if the whole thing will tear itself apart. This is why I generally use blasters from Goodwill. Alright, let's see if I can put this thing back together. Alright, before I finish buttoning it up, I'm going to make a prediction that if something fails, it's going to be right here. I can already see stress marks in the plastic, probably either from the blaster just firing, because that's how it works, or from somebody trying to prime the blaster when it wasn't loaded. But it is definitely seen some wear and tear, and if it's going to fail anywhere, it's going to fail right there from the added stress of the extra spring. Alright, well, that was a no to the Ricochet for K26, and a no to the Ricochet for a spring upgrade, and a yes to the Ricochet for getting broken in the attempt. But it was fun to take a look at it. Turns out the Nerf wiki page is wrong. It actually lists this as having a torsion spring, which it clearly did not. I don't know who's responsible for updating that. It might be me now. On to the next contestant. Our next contestant is the Ripshot. The Ripshot was originally released in 2014 as part of the Zombie Strike line. It has 3 dart holders in the front. It is also front load, just like the Ricochet, but because the barrel is a little bit longer, you can actually double load it. It doesn't shoot particularly well when you do that, and it definitely doesn't shoot as well as the Diatron shoots to, but you can. It's a little bit bigger, much more comfortable. It looks to have the same internal mechanism as the Ricochet, so let's open it up and see if it does in fact have a compression spring. It's a little bit bigger, so if it does, it might fit a K26. Let's take a look. Would you take a look at that? It uses an extension spring. Not a compression spring or a torsion spring, an extension spring. So across the Vortex line, there are blasters that use all the different types of springs, torsion, compression, and now extension. So this works, I assume, very much like the Ricochet in that it's more like a catapult, or more like a direct launcher than a catapulting arm, which is interesting. This one works fairly well. Okay, I'm just going to button it back up. So that is a no to the rip shot because it uses an extension spring rather than a compression spring or a torsion spring. Who knew? On to the next contestant. The first torsion spring blaster I want to take a look at is the Proton. The Proton was released in 2011 as part of the Vortex line, and unlike the Ricochet, doesn't front load, it rear loads. You open it up and put a disc into the little holder, close it, pull the trigger, and it shoots. As with all of the Vortex line, it has a lot of safeties, and as a result, it also has all sorts of jam releases. I assume that's what this is and what this is, in order to give you an assist should it jam, because if the disc gets a little too far forward, it no longer pushes the lock, and the gun won't fire even though there is a disc in it. So they're a bit finicky, and they definitely use torsion springs, which is what this whole housing is. So let's open this up and see if I can actually make a torsion spring out of a K26 that will work in this blaster. Okay. So, at a glance, I'm going to say that the spring in this is heavier than K26. So that is the firing mechanism in a Vortex blaster, and it's pretty much the same in most of them. As far I know, it's like this in the Rivonix and the Pyragon and the Praxis and the Lumitron, and I don't know about the Diatron though, because it fires 2 at a time. So that's one that I'm actually interested in seeing the internals on. But this one definitely, as you can see, uses a torsion spring. Now, I am all kinds of curious what's going to happen when I try to take this off. Probably going to regret it. And the way torsion springs work, compression springs obviously are meant to be compressed. Extension springs are ones that you pull on in return. This one is one that has been designed to be twisted. Now, technically, both extension springs and compression springs also work this way. They're just not, they don't have the straight bits that torsion springs have. And it's entirely possible that there's a whole different world of metallurgy involved here. Between springs that are designed to be compressed, springs that are designed to be extended, and the torsion one. I do not have nearly enough advanced metallurgical knowledge to know if this has been tempered differently than this one has, or what. But I should be able to bend a bit of K26 to look like this, and that's what I'm going to try. You know, in the movies, when somebody says, "You're meddling with forces you don't understand," well, that's what's going on here, because I really don't understand torsion springs. Well, unfortunately, we have suffered a somewhat catastrophic failure. The piece that was attempting to hold the spring compressed, because this one obviously is not all springy, I have no way of forcing that to stay down, because it's specifically designed to not do that. Hopefully it hasn't broken it in such a way that I can't put the old one back in, because that would be kind of tragic. So I am in fact going to go with my initial assessment, which is to say that nope, because they use torsion springs instead of compression springs, the Vortex line cannot take a K26. No harm, no foul. Alright, now for the conclusion. So in conclusion, these are all of the Vortex blasters that I currently own. I don't have a fuse fire. I would love to get my hands on one. And there's probably a couple more out there that I'm just overlooking. But none of them can take a K26. The Ricochet was the only one that used a compression spring, and it was too small. This one uses an extension spring, and all the rest of them use torsion springs. So they cannot take K26. There are ways of upgrading them. I've seen a couple of videos on how you can simply adjust the static point for the torsion spring, which gives it a little bit more power, and it's probably possible to find a heavier spring. This one you could definitely find a heavier spring for, but not K26, and that's what this show is all about. So, that's it for the Vortex special. If you have any comments, concerns, suggestions, ideas, if I've made any horrible mistakes, go ahead and put those in the comments below. Let me know what you would like to see in the next season of Can It Take a K26, and as always, thank you for watching.